So, what we have gone through last day, the queuable method and future method, right? Sorry,
Yes.
queuable and future method. So, today we will start with Apex trigger, right?
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Let me give you the. mm, and have you completed the those things like for what to say, the trailheads?
Yes, sir. I've completed the trailhead and I've created a scheduler class, but it is not working. I don't know why.
Okay, that we will check now.
Oh,
That is
I have also completed the trailer and my scheduler class is working.
okay. So
Same for me.
So my trail list is also completed and schedule class is happening like sometime it is working and sometime it's not. Like I have created same two classes. One class is having sending the mail and another class is just doing the updation only. Which class is updating that is working fine, but when I try to send the mail that is not working. The same things I'm doing, but I don't know why it is not working.
let's check that what you have done and what is not working.
Okay,
Let's look into that. So you can share your screen
okay, I'm
for
sharing the
whom it
screen.
is not working.
Yeah, I'm sharing. My screen is visible, right?
Yes.
So the thing is, there is some timing issue in my org. So this is the basic class that we have created earlier, and I did this scheduler part in this class only, and it is working like. Let me show you. This is the first one that I
Mhm.
have scheduled it for this day because I need to test it. You told us to do it on 1st April on the every year, but in that way we will not be able to test it, right? So I have tested that in this time, and you can see this one is working. Email send 3. It timing is 3:24. Let me go to my org 1 second. So
So what do you mean by not working? It is already scheduled. Now,
yes,
if
yes,
your
but
class working properly,
yes,
have
yes,
that part,
hmm,
then
hmm, hmm.
obviously it should work, because if you have already scheduled it at
Yes.
that time, the scheduled time, it will execute.
Yes, sir. That is my confusion. Like I have created two classes. One is without sending email functionality, and one is with sending email functionality. So what I have done, like you can see that the timing is this. I have put the silver functionality, like the new level. If the new level is silver for any contact, then it will update the time that I have written in that.
Okay.
Let me go to this. Yes, this one. Okay.
Okay.
So I have scheduled that. It is working fine, but in the this one it is same, just I have put that gold. Okay, and I have mentioned the email sending part. And for other batch classes that I have implemented earlier, this email functionality I have used and the email was working fine, but here I don't know why this class is not scheduled but it is not working.
Which one is not scheduled?
This class is also scheduled, sir. This one.
This class is scheduled and this one is working, right?
No, this one is not working. With the email functionality, it is not working. Without the email functionality, this class actually, the batch account class is working fine.
So that means there is some issue with the go back to your scheduler.
Okay.
Where?
You mean here in the
No,
schedule?
setup. It is
Got
the
it, got it. Here.
this is the schedule jobs.
Yes. This email sent functionality that I have given the time as
The Apex
3:20.
jobs.
Apex jobs. Okay.
So, what was your which class you were talking about? Is that queued completed? Which class is that? Which job is that?
Okay. Let me check, sir. Batch class to this one. This one.
It didn't. It didn't.
The status is queued. Yeah.
That is queued, and then that is completed as well.
Yes. Because the timing is like 3:24. It is
Right.
executing, but it is not updating the things, and it is even not sending the email as well.
Batch processed one. It is not fetching the records. It seems like you execute that batch
Okay.
directly rather than scheduling. Scheduling is fine. It is getting scheduled. It is getting called,
I
but
got it, sir. Yeah. Let me.
execute the class and check the email functionality. Whatever you have written there, whether that is working properly or not, check that one first. It
Okay.
is nothing to do with your scheduler. Your
Okay. Okay.
scheduler is fine.
I think then I have done something wrong here, right? Okay.
Might be in that
I
batch itself,
okay.
the batch code, there might be some issue that
Hmm.
you have to check.
Okay. Okay.
I have written same type of batch code. Mine is sending email fine.
So you have scheduled that as well, right?
No, no, no. I haven't scheduled that. I didn't say that I had a doubt. I tried to schedule that. I couldn't do it. So that I will try it one more time. That's why I didn't said anything,
Okay.
because I
So,
haven't done like 100% research on that. So I will try once and I will try if it is scheduling or not.
Okay.
okay, sir. My doubt is now clear. Like I have done something in the email send part as well. Wrong, I think. I guess. So I'll try that to fix it. Okay. Thank you.
Can I?
First, before scheduling anything, first execute the class properly. Check that whether that is working properly or not. If that is working properly, then go for the scheduling. Like scheduler is not a big deal. Like it is getting scheduled and it is getting executed from there. But the if that code of the class is not proper, then that should not work. That is a here that is the issue.
Mm,
And Shubhodipda, I think you were trying to mail in your own mail, right? Like
yes.
you were
Yes.
using your own mail ID. Try to use some other mail ID, and also try to limit your SQL query with a where clause, with some like with smaller chunk of data.
Got it, got
Work
it.
on that
Like
case.
limit 10 or something like that. And
Or
I'm fetching
yeah,
that data from some field, I guess. So I need to give some other email. That is what you are saying, right?
yes, yes, yes.
Okay, I'll try that.
Try to sort it out.
Can I
Okay.
share my screen once?
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Can I share my screen once?
Yes, yes. This call. Right.
This is the batch class that I have written.
Sending email, guys. Forget about sending email. Just write straightforward classes, not the email sending. That is a. It has multiple things like you have to check the deliverability and all these things. Let's not get into that right now. Uh, Write a simple class which you can test it properly. Do that and then schedule that rather than sending email. Anyway, tell me what is the issue.
And sir,
There is
one
no
thing,
issue.
actually, sir, you told to try it in such way that every year, 1st April, it sends an email. So
Yes, That is
Okay.
fine for now. Let's not send that email. And if you have to taste something, just do that on daily basis. If you
Okay.
can do that for daily, you can just schedule that for once a year. I told that just formulate the string
Okay.
by which you can schedule it in a way that it would execute once in a year.
Okay. So you
Not
are mostly asking about the understanding of this scheduling, like
string.
00.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay.
Exactly.
Yes,
Clear.
sir.
Yep. Tell me.
Actually, my class is working fine. This is my batch class,
Mhm.
and it is sending email properly.
Okay.
And I have scheduled it here, and I
Is not
execute.
the this is the scheduler class. This is not scheduled there. You have
Yeah, yeah.
scheduled that from that anonymous window screen.
Yes, yes.
Yep.
This is the scheduler class, and I have scheduled it from the anonymous window.
That's fine.
Yes, this is what I've done.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay. So if you have any confusion or if you have any doubt, we can just go through that after going through this Apex trigger. Okay. So first thing is that what is a trigger and when that executes, that is the primary thing that you need to understand. Then the format, how it is written. Also there would be another thing like the order of execution will come into play, and that you need to know now. uh, Most of these things we will discuss today, not much coding, but I have already given the trailhead of trigger. Go through that by next week. And next week we will simply look into how we can write small triggers, and then next to next day we will do the pattern, like how we should write trigger, like actual trigger, how we should write that. So that we will do in next to next class. So in next two classes, I believe we can just today and next two classes we can complete Apex trigger. So uh, first thing is that what is a trigger? So trigger is a nothing but a way to execute Apex code, which you can do at the time of any DML operation. What is DML? That is insert, update, delete, undelete. When you are doing this kind of operations, you there is a some action is happening. Now at the background, if you want to execute some logic, depending on these actions, these events, then there should be only one thing which you should be using, that is trigger. So you have already written flow. So there is before trigger flow and after trigger flow, that you have already written, that is which is actually record trigger flow, right? So what you can do using record trigger flow with configuration, you can do almost the same thing using trigger in Apex, and you can do lot more. Practically, what you can do using flow, it is who dropped off? Somebody
Suja
dropped off.
dropped off.
I think
Might be
Shuja
internet
might
issue.
have.
Just check that if
Yeah, sir.
Sujoy. Okay, Sujoy is
Yeah,
back.
yes.
Yeah, actually, sir, the electricity has went out.
That is fine. That is fine. No issue. No issue. So the thing is that what you can do using a record trigger flow in configuration, in coding, you can do the same thing, almost same thing, and more things with trigger. So always like trigger is the like when you are writing code, it is the most flexible way I would say, to develop something. But according to Salesforce, we should try to implement the things using configuration first. Then, if it is not possible, then only we should come back to coding. So always keep that in mind. Like you are just learning trigger, and you know that I can write trigger. So for everything I will write trigger. That is not the scenario. So first you will try to think that whether I can do this using configuration, using flow or not. If not, then you will write trigger. Or if there is a specific scenario where uh, I will come to those scenarios later. So that is the background of trigger. Now, how trigger works? Like whenever there is any operation, database operation is happening, here we are not seeing the database directly. What we are seeing, that is the objects, Salesforce standard and custom objects, right? So there is account, contact, and blah 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 blah. So there can be custom objects. Now on those objects, if you are creating one record or multiple records, so always think from this perspective. Whenever you are writing trigger, always think that, like, say you have to do some operation from your UI, that is your user interface. So at that time, what you will think that you are just updating or creating only one record, and for that record some trigger needs to execute. That is fine, but always think from this angle as well, that there might be mass update or mass insert using workbench or using batch class on that same object. Okay, and at that time also your trigger must execute properly. So whenever you are writing any trigger, bulkify that. Bulkify means always use the collection variables, and always think that this trigger is going to work on multiple records. So that should be in your head when you are writing your trigger, and write your code in that way. So in trigger also you will have loop. So don't ever write any DML or SOQL within that loop. Always extract the data within that loop and operate on top of that extracted data, or operate on collections. Don't write a trigger from this perspective that only one record will get updated, or only one record will get inserted. Okay, so this is the primary and the basic mistake people do when they start writing trigger. Like they think that, okay, in UI I have to just do this thing, and for that it will update something, and for that I need that trigger. So I don't need to think about like, it is not like multiple records will get updated, and that I have to think when I am writing the trigger. But you always have to do that only. Like whenever you are writing trigger, always think that this trigger will execute on multiple records. If it is executing on multiple records, how it will work. So that is important. So that is the first thing, like the basic, like what trigger can do, or when we should use trigger. Also the important part, like we have the uh, we have different context variables. Like you can see that trigger dot some variable name, like is before, is after, and is update, is insert, is delete, is undelete. Like these are called context variables, and with these context variables we just find out, or we just identify uh, the proper context, or I would say the proper action. Okay, so what does it mean? So say you have to do like two different things you have to do from your trigger. First one is when your account record is getting created. Okay, when the account record is getting created, uh, at that first let's understand what is before and what is after. Like, say what I have told, like there can be different events depending on your trigger can fire. Like, this can be insert, this can be update, this can be delete. And also there is another thing which is before or after. Like, before insert and after insert, there are two different contexts. So what is before insert and what is after insert? Always remember, after insert is when you have virtually done that update or insert after you are doing something. That means that is the after context. But at that time also, the commit, that is the finalization of the transaction, that is not done till now. So you are within your transaction process, but there is the before update, before insert and before insert and after insert is two different contexts. One is you have done that insert virtually, and another one is you haven't done that till now. So how that is different? Like, think about two different scenarios. One is when you were creating one account, depending on the existing user given values, you have to concatenate two or three fields and update it in another field. Okay, so for that what you have to do, say those fields are field 1, field 2 and field 3, three custom fields on account, you and put that in field 4. So within your trigger you can write that statement like field 4 equals to field 1, field 2, field 3, and it will be assigned to field 4. So for that, that is one requirement. And the other requirement is, when you are doing this, when you are creating one account, and at the same time you have to create one contact. Okay, and within contact, your these three fields, field 1, field 2, field 3, these three field values should go to contact. Okay, the concatenated value needs to, that is the field 4 should be on contact, and in contact you have to update that. In contact there is a field now, field 1, field 2, field 3 is in account now, and field 4 is in contact. So you have to create the contact and then you have to update that concatenated value. In these two scenarios, which one you can do in before and which one you can do in after, that you have to understand. So when we are saying before and when we are saying after, there is a major difference in case of insert, also in case of delete as well. The major difference is that before insert, there is no Salesforce ID. Salesforce ID is not created. Like, Salesforce have not assigned any ID value for that record till that time. But for after insert, Salesforce would already, like, the virtual insert is there. So if it is inserted, what should be the Salesforce ID that you have got? That is the after insert context. So the first scenario, whatever I have given, that can be done in before insert as well. Like, three values I will take and I will concatenate and put that in fourth field. With all these details, you can just go for that insert. There is no issue. But if you have to create the contact as well, when you are creating your account, you must go that, you must do that from your after context, right? Because you need to have the account ID. When you are creating the contact, you need to have the associated account ID, and that associated account ID, uh, you can only get in after insert context. In before insert context, that ID is blank, that is null. Okay, so in after insert context, you can get the ID of that account. So you can create that contact, and with those three field values like field 1, field 2, field 3. You can concatenate, you have already got from account. You can concatenate and as put that in another field in contact. So did you get the point? Like uh, what is before in insert context and what is after in insert context?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Like if we want to update or do some changes in the related object, then we should prefer the after insert. And if we want to do some
Right.
activities in the object
Same
that we are,
record we can
yeah,
we
same
can do that
record
in before. Yeah.
before insert.
And always remember that this before insert and after insert, whenever you are doing this, there are few things associated with it, like the order of execution. That is one of the thing that I am coming now. And the other part is that what you are going to do with which thing, like uh, the operation you need to do in which context that fits in, that you have to understand. Okay, so just give me a minute, let me open the uh, order of execution thing. Okay.
So before trigger will execute first, and after that, I think the after trigger will come into the
Seriously, but that is not the only thing, there are other things. Just give me 1 minute, I'm just getting one call I have to take. Hello. Hmm. Okay, so where we order of execution, right? Let me share my screen. So this link I have already given to you in WhatsApp. So how or when the things will execute. What is the order? Load the record or initialize the record. Okay. And then there are old values, and then it will do the, if you are doing that um, from UI, if it is happening from UI, then the system validation will uh, come into place, like whether the required values are given, the valid field format is given or not, all these things. Then it will execute the record triggered flows, that is the before run. Okay, so before trigger, before executing a trigger, the flow will get executed. So say there is one field where user has given, say, a new numeric field. User has given the value 5. In your record trigger flow, you are increasing the value by 1. Okay, so the field value will become 6 when that will enter the before trigger. You are getting my point?
Can you please
Yeah. So there is one field, say, give me 1 minute. Say this is your before flow. This is your before trigger. This is your after trigger. Okay. Say the field original for that field from UI, somebody has given the value 5 for a field. Okay. And in your before trigger, you have put whatever the value is, put +1. Here it is again +1. Here it is again +1. From UI, somebody has given the value 5. Okay. So what would be the value after execution of this flow? The value will become 6. After execution of the before trigger, the value will become 7. After execution of after trigger, it will become 8. So you can see that same field value, whatever you have got initially, if you are operating on same field in your all these three components, the values within the transaction itself, it will be changed. Like this one is after this before flow execution happened. After that, what will happen? It will increase to 6. So if you have written some condition here, in before trigger, that if value is less than equals to 5 or say less than 6, then do something in trigger, then do something, then your trigger in your before trigger, if this is the scenario, that logic will not execute. Why? Because the original value was less than 6, that was true, but in your before trigger you have increased the value by +1, so now it is not less than 6. So in your before trigger, if you have written the logic that do something if it is less than 6, then this trigger will not execute, the trigger logic will not execute. So always remember this thing, that whenever you are writing anything like writing any code, like say if you are creating different components for same kind of implementation or same things or same fields, then there is always a chance that that field value is getting changed in some component, and that's why you have to be more cautious, and that's why this order of execution is very very important when you are writing your logic. And how that is, like, before trigger flow will execute, and then your uh, apex before trigger apex will execute. Okay, so this is the trigger apex, this is the trigger flow. Now after that, most of the system validation will work, duplicate rules, blah blah. Now look into this, executes all after trigger, and here mm, executes record trigger flow which are after. So after trigger flow will execute after trigger or apex. So if I have to put another thing, this is before flow. If I have to check when that after flow will execute, after flow will execute after execution of the after trigger. So before flow executes before trigger, after flow executes after trigger. That's what we can see from this order of execution. And there are other things like escalation rule, assignment, uh, flow launched by process, workflow rule, all these things. Workflow rule, anyway, that would be gone in some time. After that, this sharing based evaluation then commits all DML operations into the database. So this is the time when your record will actually be saved. So before 19, this point 19, whatever is happening, that can revert back. Like say your before trigger is fine, your before flow is fine, your before trigger is fine, your after trigger is fine, but your after flow, that is throwing some error. Everything whatever has happened here, that will get rolled back because the transaction will not be completed. Your transaction will only complete here, not the whole transaction. If there is any logic after commit, that will execute after that. But once committing all the DML operations in database means your record is getting saved. Got the point?
Yes, sir.
So this is one of the important thing when you are actually writing trigger, you should remember. And not only trigger, but whatever process you are creating now, after looking into this, always remember this order of execution. This order of execution is very much important when you are writing your code or configuration to change the values of the fields. Now, one another important thing, that is, when you are writing this code or configuration, when you should go for trigger and when you should go for flow. I am not saying that this is a very hard and fast rule, but try to do that whenever there is already flows existing for any object. Try to implement your logic using flow. If there is already some trigger existing, you can go for a trigger, because this mix and match can cause different kind of issues. You can understand now, I believe, with this order of execution and all these things. Like here the order of execution, it is defined, but say you need to do some, you have one before flow and you are trying to do something using before trigger with your code, but it needs to happen before your flow is executed. How you can do that? So that you can only do if you go for a before flow, and within the existing flow whatever you have, you will put your logic before execution of the existing logic in that flow. Then only you can control, like, this thing will execute first and this thing will execute second, right? So that's why I am telling you, if you are seeing this, like if there is already some flows implemented for same kind of functionality, try to implement the new one or the modified one within the flow itself. If it is something already, some trigger is already written, you can go for the trigger. So try to avoid this mix and match. I am not saying this is a hard and fast rule, like I have a trigger so I should not use any before flow for that. That is not the rule, but try to maintain your logic within same component, like either flow or in trigger. That is the better way to do the things rather than doing the mix and match. Done. So till this part we have, so what we have gone through till now. What is trigger? Like when trigger executes. So trigger executes when DML operations are happening with its relation whatever we have written, and then the order of execution. And then now we will come to another thing, that is another important thing, like for any object we can have, we can, like, Salesforce is giving you the option to write multiple triggers. You can create, for account you can create trigger 1, trigger 2, trigger 3, trigger 4. That is, Salesforce is allowing you, but we should not be doing that. Why? Because if we have written multiple triggers, then we would not be able to control the order of execution. Say you have trigger 1, trigger 2, trigger 3 for account. Okay. So when, say, all these three are before triggers. Okay. So which trigger will execute first when your account insert or update is happening? You cannot confirm. No one can confirm. Even Salesforce cannot confirm. The order might be in some scenario, you will see that it is like the order is trigger 1, then trigger 3, then trigger 2. There might be scenario where you can see trigger 3, trigger 2, trigger 1. So all the possible combination of these three triggers can happen in any time. So you cannot control which one should execute first and which one should execute second, or which one should execute third. That logic you cannot confirm if you are writing multiple triggers. So what should you do? You should create only one trigger, and whatever the execution logic needs to be there, you will maintain that within your trigger, because you can write your logic phase by phase, one after another. That you can do. So there you can mention that trigger 1 and trigger 2 and trigger 3, I will execute the logic in this order. Or if you want to change that logic, you can do that within one trigger, because there you have this control, right? Got my point?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
But if I need to that sequency wise this trigger, so what I
Rakesh, you were saying something I am not able to understand. Can you just come again?
answers if I write the trigger is sequency wise, so how can I do that? So that
Frequency wise, or I didn't get that word. Your voice is
like
big. Yeah, Rakesh.
Sir, now it's okay. Yeah. Hello.
Yeah, yeah.
So I have just write three trigger. Okay. So
Okay.
I want that one execute one trigger, execute one after another. Okay. So what I can do? So like any way.
No, there is no way.
Yeah.
There is no way you can sequence this order of these triggers in one object. I am talking about single object. Like on account, I must not write three triggers, because I cannot maintain the order within those three triggers. Neither myself nor even Salesforce can maintain that. Okay, so it can execute in any order. So the process is, you should create only one trigger, and within that one trigger, whatever logic you want to put in trigger 1, trigger 2, trigger 3, you put all this logic in one trigger and maintain the sequence there itself by you. Write it in a way so that it is sequential. Which logic you want to execute first, you will write that first. Whatever you want to execute second, that will come second.
Okay. So I can write a one trigger and then I have maintained that one.
Within your code, you have to maintain that with your logic. So that is important. So we have already looked into two best practices of writing trigger. One is always bulkify trigger. Second is always write one trigger for one object. Like there are specific scenarios where we can just write like multiple triggers. That is a different special scenario. I will come to that later probably, if required. Like in few cases we can do that, but that is not the generic scenario. Generically, you can always think about that you should write only one trigger, and you should write your logic within that, and put the proper sequencing, and which should execute first, which should execute second. You can do that there. Now the third important best practice for writing trigger is that write one trigger, and with context variable put the different chunks, right? So different chunks means, let's go to trigger now. Whenever we have to write a trigger, it will start with this word trigger, then the trigger name, then on means on which object it should be. Here it is account. You whatever the name of your object on which you have to write trigger, you can put it there. And then you have this, which events it will cover. Here it is before insert, after insert, and after delete. Right? Now,
Sir, are
how?
you sharing
Are
your
you
screen? I
sharing?
can't.
Oh, I'm not. My bad. I believe now you can see the screen.
Yeah.
So we can write trigger in this way. Trigger, that is the keyword, name of the trigger, then on which object I have to write this. Then I have this before insert, after insert, after delete. There can be other events as well, but this trigger will execute on these events. Now, how should I understand when I am writing my code? How should I understand where, like, some code I have to write for before insert only, some code I have to write for after delete only? How I can mention this? Because when I have mentioned these three events, then every time any one of this event is happening, any one of this action is happening, it will come into this trigger and it will execute this trigger body. So how I can segregate? The way is these context variables which I was talking about before. So trigger dot is insert, that means if, when I am within this if body, I am only considering is insert scenario. It is not is delete or is update scenario. Only is insert scenario. Uh, Only in is insert scenario, the logic of this if will execute. Now after that, I have another context variable, that is trigger dot is before. So is before, if this, if condition is true, that means right now I am doing something when insert operation is happening, and combining these two, this is before insert, this is the before insert scenario. That I have to, like, whatever logic I have to write for before insert scenario, that should go here. For after insert, you can understand now, this is the after insert. Is before or is after, these are called, this is insert, is update, is delete, is before, is after, these are called trigger context variables. Okay, what are the trigger context variables we can use? This is the list. All these are the lists. Fine. Now another important thing, for most of the scenarios, mostly we don't write logic, the whole logic we don't write within trigger. We create these if else and this structure within trigger, and whatever logic I have to call, I should write that in a separate class, that is called a handler class or helper class. Within that class I should write my logic and call it from here, rather than writing the whole logic within trigger, because it keeps the trigger simple. Like, if I have to big logic within trigger, say, for before insert and before delete I have very long logic, it will be very difficult for me later to debug, like which, for which section or which issue I am just getting some error or something like that. So the best way to write trigger, the best practice to write trigger is that we should write the trigger, uh, the logic of that trigger within a separate class, within separate method, and I will call those methods here. I will not write the whole logic or whole body here. Right. So this is the basic and fundamental thing of trigger. So here you can see the logic is written within the trigger, but later you will see that uh, logic will is moved into some other class. Okay, now just go through this first page. You don't need to look into this trigger and call out right now. We will talk about this later. This one you have to look into using trigger exception, how we can do that.
So, sir, the triggers best practice is like bulk DML operation. One is like trigger is to write a trigger is only one trigger for the one object, and
Right.
also when and also write a trigger trigger.
Always bulkify the trigger. Consider that it is bulkified, like
Yes,
it is handling multiple records at the same time. The default size is 200 actually for executing a trigger. Right.
yes,
Third
and
third thing is that don't write the DML and SOQLs within loop in trigger, which is the standard best practice of Apex always. And fourth one is don't write your full logic within trigger. If it is a very small one, you can write probably, but most of the time, the best way to handle the logic within trigger is that write that logic in a separate class and call that method. Just call that method. Okay.
okay,
Now, there are other things I need to explain. Before that, just go through this. I have already given the link. Just go through this. Take 5 minutes or 10 minutes of time, and then I will explain two more things: what is triggered.new and what is triggered.old.
okay, sir.
That we have to understand today. So that next day we can just start writing some trigger. Okay.
Okay.
So just go through that. I'm coming back in 5 minutes, and after that we can discuss. Done.
Almost, sir.
Okay, complete that and let me know.
Yes, sir. Done.
Okay, done for everybody.
Yes, went through it.
Okay, okay. Sujoy Pallab Indranil. Once completed, let me know.
Okay, sir.
Sir, I just spoke.
Okay.
Yes.
I
Sir,
have also
you will
completed.
be you will be giving assignment, I guess.
Assignment is to complete the this trailhead trigger, Apex trigger trailhead.
Okay, sir.
So before that, you have gone through this. What are the things you didn't understand? First, you let me know.
Like, what is the basic difference between this old map and map? I'm
And
confused.
sir, I have a question. Like list and what is the difference with list and the trigger dot?
Uh, Rakesh, your voice somehow is muffled today. Like I'm not getting it properly. Can you please come again?
I have just also seen like what is the difference like list and trigger dot new.
Trigger dot what? Which line?
Trigger dot new and a list.
Trigger dot new. Okay.
Difference between trigger dot new and list.
Trigger dot new is itself is a list. So I will
Same
come
thing.
to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will come to that.
Okay. Sir.
Anything else you didn't understand?
This new map and this old map, is it for like comparing purpose? Because
Yes, this
one is
is.
storing. Okay.
Yes, this is. Before that, we have to understand trigger dot new and trigger dot old. Then trigger dot new map and trigger dot old map. So that is the only thing you didn't understand. Add
I
error,
think,
you
sir.
have understood that, right?
No, no,
Mm.
no. I was about to ask.
Okay.
Add
This is
Anything
a
else?
trigger dot new is for new values and trigger dot old is for old values, right?
Yes, yes, yes. I will come to that. I will come to that.
Add error is like add to a validation kind of
Yeah,
thing, right?
validate for validation. Yes.
Okay. Then I think trigger dot new, trigger dot old, and new map and old map. That is what you need to understand first. And add error, I will come later. So whenever we are going into any trigger, I am writing this trigger on account, right? Now, which records I have to work on? That I have to understand, right?
yes.
Like, uh, say there are 1 lakh account records, and say 2000 of those records are getting updated now for any reason, or say 2 records or 20 records. So which records are actually getting updated or inserted or deleted, like for which these triggers should execute? How should I know which records? The way to understand is that this trigger.new and trigger.old. So trigger.new will return a list of all those records which are actually affected by this operation right now. The subject list is only available in insert update delete, and it returns a list of new version of the subject records. New version of which subject records? Which are getting updated right now, or inserted or deleted, like on which this action is getting performed. So that means for insert, which are the records are getting inserted now, that will be returned by trigger.new and trigger.old. For delete, if I am deleting some record, then those records will come here. Okay, not the other ones. Now, what is trigger.new? It will give you the new values for those records, and trigger.old will give you the old values of those records. Say I am changing, say this is for update. I have written one trigger for update on account, and there is one field called name, and I am changing the name. Say the previous name was Kiran, and the new name is Nitin. So in like previous name was, if the previous name was Kiran, then for that record in the list, I in trigger.old I will get that old value, that is Kiran. In new I will get the new value, that is Nitin.
Okay.
Okay.
Sir,
Now
depending on this value change, if we want to do certain logic performance, where should
we
we
can,
put that inside the trigger itself or
inside
in
the
the
trigger
value?
itself, inside
Okay.
the trigger itself. So when we are writing this, now what this trigger.new will return actually? This trigger.new will return a list of all those records on which this operation is happening. Fine. Trigger.new will give you the list of all those records which are getting affected now.
So the trigger.new return the new record, right? In list.
It will return those all those records which are getting affected by this operation right now with the new set of values. Whatever new set of values I have given, that you will get from there. But the records whatever you will get there, that is which are getting changed, which are getting affected. Say two records are getting affected, I am updating two records at this in a single transaction, then those two records will come in trigger.new, and whatever the new values I have given for those records, that I can find from new. From trigger.old, I can get the same set of records with old values.
Okay.
Clear?
Yes, sir.
You will get two different lists within trigger with new and old. Both will return same set of records. Both will return same set of records. New will give you the new values, old will give you the old values for those same set of records. Clear? And when we can get this, where we can utilize this trigger.old? In update and delete. In insert, I cannot use old value. Trigger.old will not work in insert, in the scenario of insert. Okay,
Because the records are getting created just then, so
at
no
that
big
time
deal for them.
only. Okay.
Yeah.
Also, what is new map and old map? The same as new and old as list. This new map and old map will return the new set of values and the old set of values in if in format of map. That means when you are just fetching those values in that map, the id will be the key.
Okay.
Okay, id will be the key, and the values you can get is in map format. That's it. Nothing else is different there. Fine.
Yes. So I guess when we are creating records depending on something else, we should use this map because we will be able to like refer to the record IDs itself.
Right, we can if we need to use that in different ways, like list and map we have to use depending on our requirement.
Yes.
Fine. Now trigger.add error. This add error you can only use within the uh, trigger loop. Anyway, so what is add error? Add error is something, say, for any specific condition you want to block the execution of the trigger, you don't want to proceed. At that scenario only you will put add error, because if you put add error, the transaction will be stopped, the transaction will not get completed. Remember that. If you think that I have 5 records, for if I face issue for one, and for that I will throw this error, it will not get inserted or updated for that record. Remember that it is not something you can show as an warning. This is error, and this error will actually stop that transaction.
Like any insert operation is happen, so that this time, like,
Preventing records from being saved. This is the vital point. Remember that. Like, basically, what happens, people think that, okay, there is something. say for these things, if I am getting something, I just need to show something in UI, then I will put this add error. Remember, if you put that add error, like something that the records are getting saved, or I have saved, like system saved the record successfully, you cannot put that that message to UI with add error, because if you do that, then your record will not get saved. Remember that preventing records from being saved, only that situation we will put this add error, otherwise we will not put. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Clear for everybody?
So
Yes, sir.
can you repeat once?
So add error is something by which you can prevent the record being saved. So
Okay.
don't think that you have to show some message in UI, that's why you can put add error. You cannot.
Okay, okay. So you are saying about it is not just a pop-up that will come and tell you
Right.
the
It is
should not
not
do
like
it.
that. It will
More of a
actually,
blocker. More
it
of a
is a
blocker.
blocker. It will block. It will block that. It is clearly written.
Okay.
Preventing records from being saved.
Understood, sir.
Okay. So that's it then for today. You go ahead and complete this. This is a hands-on challenge. You can look into this, and you can just, with the help of whatever written here, you should be able to complete this. Complete this this apex trigger, trailhead, bulk apex trigger. These two things are actually required. Go through this bulk apex trigger as well. Next. So with that, let's complete today's class. And what we will do, next day we will try to write something small triggers of our own in the class. And remember that for trigger also you need to have test classes. Okay. So for triggers, test classes are relatively, that is simpler. Like, you only have to do the operation, proper operation. If it is before update trigger, you have written the logic. So you have to create the sample records in your test class and just do a simple update on that, on top of that. So that will cover, because that will call the trigger, and that will cover that logic if you have created your record data properly. So that we will look into, and then we will move into those logic within classes. First we will write the logic within a class, within trigger. Then we will move that logic to a class and method. That we will complete next day. And next to next day we will go with factory pattern, actually how we should create a pattern in trigger. Like, there are multiple things we have to handle. Say, first thing is, when you are actually say there is a scenario. On account you have a trigger, on contact you have another trigger. So from account you are updating the contact, depending upon certain scenario you are updating the contact, and in contact also, depending upon some scenario, you are updating account. So
That
it is
is trigger recursion case.
recursion, right? It is not a exact recursion. It is recursion means same trigger is getting called. Obviously the recursion, it is a cyclic recursion actually.
Mm,
There
okay.
can be a self recursion as well. Like, I am updating account from account trigger, so that would be self recursion.
Mm,
Here it is a cyclic recursion.
So
It will
here, like one trigger is triggering another trigger in a loop
right,
way.
and it will create that loop. Now, how you can break that? What is the way to do that? That is one of the thing. So ideally, what should happen from account, when you have created that account or updated that account, it should go to contact and update the contact. And ideally, when like that has happened, then the contact should get updated and it will come back to that account trigger. But now account trigger should not execute because it was started from account. So we can just create one boolean variable in one global class and utilize that to break this recursion. If you don't execute the logic on account second time, then your contact update will not occur. So that is one of the way to break the recursion. That is one of the thing we will check. The other thing what we will do, that is we have to do that apex in production. We cannot directly change the apex. We can change page layout, we can change flow, though those are not uh, suggested. Like you should do that in your sandbox and then deploy that in production. But there are scenarios like when you might have to do that. But the thing is that in any way on apex you cannot do it. Now there might be a scenario that huge record is getting uploaded in system, or for some specific scenario you have to stop execution of your trigger. So how you can do that? Simple thing is that you go to that trigger, deactivate it. That there is a one checkbox that is activate deactivate. You uncheck that, your trigger will stop working. But that you cannot do in production, right? Because for that what you have to do, you have to uncheck that checkbox in your sandbox and you have to deploy that in production, which is not a suggested way. So when we are saying that blocking of trigger execution, that does not mean that I have to physically block that execution. What I can do, I can ensure, if I can ensure that my trigger logic is not getting executed, then it would be fine, right? If the trigger, all the triggers are bypassed, say, if you have the way to bypass the trigger, some way, some logic, if you can build, depending on some configuration, then what will happen? If you have to stop the execution, you can change that configuration. It is a very simple thing actually. Say whatever method you are writing, say for account, for all the objects we can keep that configuration. So I have created one metadata, and that metadata is, say, account trigger, uh, uh, not account trigger, trigger execution, say. That is the name of the metadata, and there are different records: record for account, contact, and for all the objects separately. So for the name of the row is account, and there is a boolean on or off. If that is checked, then only my trigger should execute. Otherwise, my trigger should not execute for account. How I can do that? I can just simply write one condition from that metadata. I can just pull that metadata and check if it is account, then the account name, like the uh, record name for that metadata is account. I will fetch that record and check that boolean value there. If that is checked, that is true, then my trigger will execute. Otherwise, my trigger logic, it should not go into trigger logic. So I will check if that is true, then I should write all my logic within that. Otherwise, I will like it will go to else, and in else I will not keep anything. The else will be blank. So in that scenario, if I just change that custom metadata value true to false, then my execution of account trigger can be stopped. Like the logic will not get executed. So probably you got the thing 50%, not 100%, but at least I believe you have got that idea, like what you can do. In Apex code, you can fetch any metadata you can fetch the values of any metadata. And in that metadata, if I keep one Boolean field for each and every trigger separately, then what I can do with that metadata, in production, I can change the metadata value directly. So if I change that value from true to false, then the logic will get bypassed for that trigger. So that means that trigger is not executed. So this is one of the important thing which we might or which we should do, okay, whenever we are writing trigger. So this thing we will understand in our last class, like how we can implement this. Fine. Any question?
No, sir. Actually, sir, I have created a trigger. So in the delete trigger, it is not working. So can you check it once if you have
Yeah, we
2 minutes
will
time?
check that next.
Okay. Yeah,
So whatever,
all the
because
other functionality is
till
working fine, but the delete
till
action is not
now
working.
I haven't like, first you should go through this trailhead and then you will
But
get
my trailer, I've completed the trailer.
good. So once you do that, then next class we will just look into whatever you have created. Sorry, whatever you have created till now, and we will check what is the issue.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Anything else, guys?
No,
No,
Okay.
sir.
Then let me stop the recording.